Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm just going to be giving you guys my thoughts on the original Scream. Originally I was going to try to do this as an actual review, but I kind of decided against that. I do want to touch on all the things that I like and maybe just like a few nitpicks about things that I don't like quite as well throughout all these different movies in this franchise, but I think that overwhelmingly these are going to be very positive because not any of these films is one that I dislike. I just genuinely love all six of the ones that we have gotten so far. So I think that doing it this way might be just a little bit better. So I just want to first talk about how much I love this film. I think that it is super iconic, and I have mentioned in a video before, my very first one, that this is really the first horror movie that I watched in its entirety that I can remember at least, and it was just hugely impactful for me. I had such a good time watching it. I was completely enthralled by it, and it just made me such a huge horror fan just seeing that first film. I think that it is really awesome due to the fact that it was a film that really breathed new life into the genre again. We had so many different slasher movies throughout the course of the 80s, and there was definitely a lull in that kind of content at that time. But Scream came onto the scene and just changed everything again. And it was a movie that really shaped how I became a horror fan, and I think that's the case for so many different people in my generation specifically. It is just a favorite for almost everyone that I know. So I think that there are a lot of components as to why this movie did so well. And the first one that I want to touch on would be the writing from Kevin Williamson. I think that it is very obvious when you watch this movie and you get to see all the dialogue and stuff, how big of a horror fan Kevin is. And that is what we need. We need people that are horror fans that are doing the writing for horror movies. It is just so much better and has more meaning when there's so much love for the genre behind the film. And I just love all the self referential stuff and just so many different horror movie references in there. And quick shout out to another creator that I really love on YouTube, Zach Cherry. He has, I think, multiple different videos where he talks about all of the different horror movies referenced in the Scream franchise, and I would highly recommend checking that out. He is definitely one of my favorite creators, especially due to the fact that he does do a lot of Scream content. I don't know that there are too many better at doing Scream content than him. But I really like all of the references in there. I am huge on that kind of thing, and also just um, fan service, stuff like that. That works really well for me. But I really like getting to see all the different horror stuff that they talk about in these movies. And it's not just, Randy that's talking about the horror movies. It's really all of the characters at some different point in time throughout the course of the film. They're all making those references to horror movies. And I think just as such a big horror fan, that is just awesome to me. And I think that it should be very interesting to see what Kevin can bring to the directing angle, since he is going to be the director for Scream 7. And I know that he has done at least one movie before, not in the Scream franchise by any means, but I'm excited to see what he brings to that as well. So another key component to why this movie is so good would be Wes Craven being the director for it. He is definitely an iconic horror director and just one of the biggest named ones that we all think of when we think of horror movie directors. He had so many different amazing films long before Scream even came out, but this one is definitely my favorite out of any of his, bar none. And I think that the meta angle that I'm assuming is kind of brainchild of both him and Kevin Williamson is just really awesome. It's not something that we had really gotten to see too much before this. We did get that in New Nightmare from him. I think he was kind of just stepping his toes just slightly into that idea in that movie, and then he just dove really headfirst into that in Scream and just the Scream franchise as a whole. And I think that it's a really fun idea to have meta horror movies, and we have gotten a lot more of that, and that is completely due to Scream being that way. Now, I do want to talk about the cast. So I think that they did such an amazing job casting this film. There are so many good young actors and actresses that they have specifically in this friend group. So I do want to go over all of them as well. So first up, we obviously have our main character, Sidney Prescott. She is the final girl, and she is, in my opinion, the best final girl that there is. I don't find any to be quite on the level that she is personally. And I think that a lot of that is due to Kevin's writing, because he is such a horror fan and he does have that opportunity to watch all these different horror films that have final girls in them and kind of be able to pick out the best things and make all of those things that Sidney has as her traits. So another iconic final girl that I obviously think of would be Laurie Strode from the Halloween franchise. But one thing that I think that Sidney just does a little bit better is that she is more on the offense when it comes to going up against Ghostface. Whereas Laurie, she would just kind of stab Michael once with whatever weapon she had at the time and then try to flee in that first film in particular. But Sidney is not afraid to finish the job by any means. And we see that throughout the course of the franchise for sure. And I really just like the portrayal that Neve Campbell does for Sidney. She is a badass for sure, but she's also very sweet and vulnerable. I think that she is morally just such a good character, and you see that more in some of the other films, and I will touch on that when we get to those movies, but she just shows how good of a person that she is throughout the course of the franchise, and I really appreciate that about her. I also really like that, she didn't have to be a virgin to take down the killers in this movie, as that was such a huge trope before. But she is showing that you don't have to be absolutely perfect to take down the killers in the end. And I think that that's a more relatable idea. The next one I want to talk about would be Tatum Riley. And she is just the quintessential kind of sex positive best friend in this movie. And I think that Rose McGowan does bring a lot to this role. She has a lot of personality. She is just fun to watch on screen. And I also really love how much she cares about Sidney. And I think that we can see that in a couple things specifically. She has no problem saying something to her boyfriend when he is just being insensitive when there are multiple Ghostface dressed students running around their high school. And it's clearly upsetting Sidney, but he just thinks that it's all fun and games. But yeah, she's not afraid to stand up to him and tell him that he's being an idiot, essentially. And I also really like that she is taking Sidney's side when Sidney is kind of voicing her concerns about her relationship as far as like the physical aspect with her and Billy. But she said that he doesn't deserve her, and I like the energy that she brings to this. Then the next one I want to talk about would be Randy Meeks, and I think that he is just everyone's favorite horror nerd. I think that he's just such a fan favorite character for a good reason. He is just so relatable. When I look at him, I see myself, and I think that's the case for a lot of us horror fans that like this film. He does such a good job when he is explaining the rules to them in this first film, and we have a different type of rules speech, I think, in all of these films. Some are better than others for sure, but this one is the one that will always be the best. It will go down in history for me as one of the best horror scenes of all time. And now I do want to take a little break from the friend group for an obvious reason, and I do want to talk about our more adult characters in this film. And we'll start with Dewey. And he is another one that I think that is very morally good in this film and the whole franchise. He is dedicated to, you know, being a good deputy at this point in the franchise, and that definitely does progress, but he is also just a good friend, and he cares very much about Sidney. We see that throughout the course of the franchise as well. And I think that David Arquette really does bring a lot of charisma to this role, and so much, in fact, that he and Courtney Cox ended up together for at least a point in time while they were filming some of these films. But now we have to talk about Gale Weathers. I think that she is just such a well-rounded character, extremely well written. She is very enigmatic, and she's a lot more fun technically than Sidney. I do like Sidney more overall, but I think that Gale is just such an awesome character. I see a lot of people talk down on her, and I think that honestly that's just the fact that she is such a strong career woman. And, if there was a man that was in that same kind of position, no one would bat an eye. But, because she's a career woman, we sometimes look at her a little bit more negatively. But I don't feel that way at all. I think that she is just so driven. She's got Top Story that she is a part of for this first film, and she has also written a book about Maureen Prescott's murder. And she has that desire to win a Pulitzer as well, and we definitely get to see her career progress even more throughout the course of the franchise, and I love that for her. And I do have to just say that I really love her and Dewey together in these films. They are so different, obviously, but I think that they can kind of pick up where the other ends, if that makes sense. She is a lot more tough when it comes down to it, and he is just the nicer, sweeter part of that duo. But I do think that they go really well together. So now we've got to go back to the friend group and talk about the last two, Billy and Stu, who are also obviously our killers. So Billy Loomis, I think, is a very iconic killer in this franchise. Probably one of, if not everyone's top choice for the killers in the franchise. I think that Skeet Ulrich just definitely embodies that kind of bad boy killer look to him. So it's kind of obvious throughout the film that he is probably Ghostface. I mean, because in the beginning you don't know that there's more than one. But I think that they do a really good job throughout this film throwing in the different red herrings. So even though he does look like such an obvious killer, they do kind of subvert it a little bit with the different things that they do. And specifically when we think that he gets stabbed when he is in Stu's parents' bedroom with Sidney, then, obviously for that little bit of time, we don't think that he is the killer or anything like that. So I think that that was just very well done overall. And now we have to talk about Stu. Stu is pretty much motiveless when it comes down to it. He's just more the right-hand man of Billy. He is really just doing it, as he said, because of peer pressure and just his devotion to Billy. And it just seems like he is having fun no matter what is going on throughout the course of this film. He's just having a good time. If he's just talking to his friends, he's having a good time, but he's also having a good time taking all these people out as well. He is a pretty twisted character when it comes down to it, but he just has so much personality that Matthew Lillard brings to the performance. So many super hilarious and quotable lines throughout the course of the film. And I just can't get over how good of a performance it really is. You know, we have all these different fan favorite characters like Sydney, Gail, Dewey, and Randy, who were all in multiple different films in this franchise. But him, you know, he was only in this first film. And there have been people just wanting him to come back to this franchise for such a long period of time, you know, due to the fact that in Scream 3 he was set to return and he was going to be Ghostface once more. But there were real life tragedies going on and just multiple rewrites for Scream 3, so he didn't get to return. But everyone knowing that it was a possibility, it just is something that we've all been wanting for such a long time. And I'm so happy that we're finally getting that. I know I've talked about it in a video before, but I know people are kind of thinking that it might be an AI angle and that's how they're bringing some of these people back. But he is literally the only one that could come back as a flesh and blood killer one more time. So I really, really hope that that is the angle that they go specifically with him. Any of the other ones that they're bringing back, you know, like Scott Foley, that would be fine if they're AI, but he better not be, or I'm going to be a little ticked about it. Honestly, when I get to do my Scream 7 review, it may end up having to be a full spoiler one, depending on what all we get in the film. But I'm excited for it regardless. But I just think that all of the cast in here are just awesome. And I think that that is a huge reason as to why this movie is so good. But the last type of thing that I want to talk about in this video would be just some of the different scenes that I really love and why I think that, you know, they make this movie as good as it is. So first off, we have to talk about the opening. I think that this is easily one of the best, if not the best, horror movie openings of all time. I had heard before that Drew Barrymore had suggested that she not be the main character and that she just be the one that gets killed off first. I don't know if that was all her, if that's even true or not, or if that was kind of a decision between people behind the scenes and stuff as well. But I think it was definitely the right choice, whoever is, you know, to blame for that. It was definitely an awesome thing to do because it was so, you know, surprising. She was obviously the biggest known actor in the movie, and killing her off right away just subverted everyone's expectations quite a bit, I think. And, you know, at that point, it just shows that there are stakes, and this is not the movie that you thought it was going to be when you got there. I think that it is very well done. Just the Ghostface call, it's the first one that we get. We get tons throughout this franchise, but none will be as impactful as this first one. The next scene that I want to talk about that I think is really iconic would be Tatum's death. I think that that one, I think about that one a lot. I really love the way that Rose McGowan is playing off of Ghostface in this one. She is just kind of bringing a lot of that personality into the scene. And looking back at it, there are certain things about this one that are not super believable. First off, I don't know why she would have ever thought that she could have made it through that little door. And then I also just don't think that she would be able to be lifted that high with the door or anything. I think that she probably would have just came crashing down more than likely. But this one will always just stick in my memory due to the fact that just seeing her like squished face in the garage door is just it was so creepy to me when I watched it for the first time, and I was decently young when I saw that first film, so it was, probably the, I guess, goriest thing I had seen at that point. Um, so I will always, look at that scene fondly just because of that impact that it had on me at a younger age and stuff. The next scene that I want to talk about, which I've already kind of talked about a little bit, would be the rules speech that Randy does to all of his classmates that are at Stu's at the time. I think that it is just such an iconic moment, and I have so much fun with it because, if you are a horror fan, and I obviously am, you know that all of the things that he is saying are true. We have seen so many different horror movies that point all of those things out to us. And it's just really cool to see a horror character that is aware of all that stuff. So, the last one that I want to talk about would be just the killer reveal and the third act in general. So basically, as soon as Billy shuts that front door and then says, "We all go a little mad sometimes," you know that all bets are off. And in that moment, you also know that there is at least one more killer due to the fact that we had seen him seemingly be stabbed earlier on in the film. But honestly, I wasn't even thinking about that in the moment when I was watching that for the first time. I was just, surprised that it was him since he had been attacked and stuff. And then when we see Stu come up with that voice changer, it's just such an awesome moment. I love that there were two killers. I think that that was something that was surprising. It's not something that we would get a lot, I don't think, at that point. And there are tons of killer reveals in this franchise, obviously, but I don't know that any are quite as impactful as this first one. And there are other ones that I really like, but I would have to really sit down and think about if there are any that work better for me than this one, because this one just blew me away at the time, and I don't know that any of the other ones could beat that for me. But I really love the third act. I love how Sydney is just going after them. I love that she will take any different opportunity that she has to get herself and her father into a better, safer situation. Like when they are distracted, she will do everything she can to better their situation. She is just an exceptional final girl. And that can't be understated, even in this first film. But that is really all that I have left to talk about for this first film, I think. Um, so I want to know your thoughts on the original Scream down in the comments. Is it one of your favorite horror movies of all time, or is it one that you like but you don't like it quite that much? Or do you think that it is overrated? I would like to have discussions with you guys about the original Scream down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it. Consider subscribing if you haven't yet for more horror content. I do post 2 new videos each week. You can follow me on Instagram for updates on my channel, as well as additional horror content. You can also follow me on Letterboxd to see what I have been watching lately and my brief thoughts on any of those films. If you want either of those, they are linked in my channel description for easy access for you guys. I also want to know from you, are there some other Scream video ideas that you would like to see me bring to this channel? Like I said, I do want to go over all of the different Scream films through the 6th film. And I'm also going to do a review, obviously, for Scream 7 when it comes out. I intend to do a ranking of the franchise after that. And then I'm probably going to rank all of the ghost faces, however many there end up being by the end of that. I don't know if I will do like any other types of videos, if I would want to talk about the different killer reveals, or if that's something that I would just incorporate into my Ghostface ranking. But if you do have any other ideas on more Scream content that you would like to see from me, put those in the comments as well, or DM me on Instagram and let me know any of that stuff. because I do like to take your ideas into account when I am making videos and stuff. But I do want to just say thank you to everyone who has been supporting me so far. It doesn't go unnoticed. My name is Devin. This is Carpenter Hill. Thanks for watching.